Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. Welcome to our Pathwork Village. So the way I'd like to begin is just to have you say your name and where you are on the planet. Just your name and where you are, and then we'll go into our experience together. Anybody can start.
Jack, but I'm not sure which planet I'm on.
Welcome, Jack.
I'm Julia, Richmond, Virginia.
And my name is Attila. And currently I'm in München,
Welcome.
but I'm come originally from Serbia.
Bob, I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
And I'm Maria, and I come from Athens, Greece.
Kalimera.
And I'm Gustavo. I'm in Canada, originally from Brazil.
Welcome.
Claudia, Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm originally from San Diego, but I'm in St. Pete, Florida.
Welcome.
I'm Jean.
Mel Sedanic, upstate New York near Phoenicia.
I'm Jean, and I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
I'm Marcia. I am in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm originally from Salvador.
Wow.
Iracema from Belo Horizonte, Brazil.
You need, we can't hear you, Marion. You need to unmute.
Okay. Hi, Marion from New York City. Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Marion.
I am Ingrid Schierholz from upstate New York.
Okay.
Oh my
Oh, yes.
Hi, this is Kay I'm in Chapel, North Carolina.
And Siri just texted, she's in Austin, Texas.
Hi, this is Joanne Benedetto from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Welcome,
Hi, Joanne.
This is Fred and Andre Paisley. We're from San Diego, California, where Kathy used to be.
Welcome.
Yay, California.
Yes.
I'm Bill Prindle in Charlottesville, Virginia. And Brian, I'm impressed you can get Siri to text you. I can hardly get her to answer my questions.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet?
Hi, I'm Lori. I'm in Minnesota.
Okay, welcome.
Denise
Alan
in Castle
Saley
Rock,
from
Colorado.
New York.
Go ahead, Alan. I didn't hear you.
Hi, Alan Saley. I'm in the Hudson Valley right now.
Welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
Hi, Alan.
Hey.
I'm Kia. I'm from Ottawa, Canada.
Yay. I'm Paul Paquette. I'm from Toronto. And actually right now, Attila, I am in Mannheim, just south of Frankfurt. So I'm here for a couple of months.
Really?
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Okay. I feel some lightness of being here. It's pleasant. I'm welcoming that. I see a lot of experienced faces in the Pathwork. And as people have been speaking, I just been visualizing these lights going on all over the planet, and you know, that we're here together is a good thing. So we'll begin with a short attunement before we welcome Paul. And I want to start with just a moment or two of light core energetics, right? So I invite you to imagine, like, whatever's in your way right now, just feel yourself like push it out of the way, like, give me some room, right? You even let the sound come out, whether you mute it or not, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever's dragging on you or pulling at you or bugging you, get out of my way. Now, like, to either side, like, give me some room. Give me some space. And imagine just nagging thoughts coming up like fire ants on your legs, just stomping them out with your feet for a minute. Any sounds of breath that want to come out. And finally, taking your hands, just shaking them, like whatever's on there, like, go away, leave me alone. And now just gently going inside and closing our eyes. Slowing down. Just feeling whatever life force got on the move by what we just did together. And letting in however the breath wants to move, without telling it what to do, trusting that it knows. Breathing as if the air was free. Gently letting one hand come down, thumb at the navel, and the rest of the hand gently falling down. Visualize under that hand any feelings that are on the move in you, whatever they are. Just welcoming them there. Now let the other hand just come over the heart for a moment. The heart, the center of compassionate presence in a human being. Slowly bringing that hand from the belly up with all the feelings, bring them over the other hand into the heart. With one hand still on the heart, let the other hand come up to the forehead. Really bringing in any thoughts swirling around, going off like popcorn. Welcoming them all just as they are. And then bringing them down with the hand over the other hand to the heart, center of compassionate presence. The feelings and the thoughts now safely held by this vast presence in the heart. Just allow in any longing that's close by. Whatever form, whatever shape it is. For those you love, especially for yourself. And in this place of longing, just feeling it for a moment. See if there's any intention that arises. Comes into this open space. And feel the longing and the intention supported by brothers and sisters here. From all over the world, yet sharing something really precious. A deep path of self-acceptance, self-understanding, self-compassion. Listening very carefully with the inner ear. See if you can hear a voice deep down inside from the real self. Saying first and foremost, I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Slowly opening our eyes, taking whatever time you need, and just take a moment and let your eyes glance across the screen here. All the faces that are here. Depending on your device, you may see more than one screen of faces. I'm showing 33 of us right now. Thank you for being here. So, it is in fact my pleasure to introduce Paul Paquette, who I only have known for a short time, yet I'm very struck by his warmth, his spontaneity, his clever wit. Most of all, his eros and devotion to the pathwork, really wanting to steward it, really help bring the message forward in a way that it can prosper and thrive in today's world that needs it so badly, so goodly. So Paul has made it clear to me, I'm sure he will to you, that he doesn't have a formal presentation here, and yet I welcome that. What we're really wanting to do is mix all our energies together with Paul's presence. And so Paul, and from Toronto, now in Mannheim, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see some familiar faces such as Jean and Kia from Ottawa. I'm a Canadian, and we did, actually, I guess we met 20 years ago when we started PTP, and here it is 20 years later. And a few other people I've gotten to know closely, such as Alan and Jack over the last few years. Jack's one of our board members, and of course, Alan leads the Pathwork Press, and Gustavo lives in Toronto, in the, well, I was about to say out in the suburbs, but he probably thinks I'm way in the downtown or something, but we live nearby each other and are in touch from time to time. But it's so great to see people from all over, and I sort of gave a shout out there to California because Fred's in California, and I love spending a few months of the year in California. So I just couldn't resist shouting out for California. I guess not to I guess that I'm saying something about the rest of the states, but not to diminish any of the other states. Thank you. So I thought we'd talk today, really reminisce about the past. And there's some people here I know, such as Jack Conaway, who knew Eva. So I'm hoping that Jack, and I don't know if some of the others in the group, Marion, perhaps, Marion Lewis, knew Eva. I hope that you share, maybe Mel, I don't know. So I hope that you share stories and recollections, because it's always heartening for people to hear about who was this woman, who was this channel, and what was she like as a person. So before I talk about that, let me just say I do want to. I think we should spend some time reminiscing, celebrating who was the person that did the work to channel these lectures that have meant so much to ourselves. And then I'd like to spend a bit of time on the current time, 2021. Where does the Pathwork go, particularly in North America? I think we have a few South Americans on the call, and perhaps the situation in South America is somewhat different than North America or Europe. But it's like, where do we go from here? And also maybe reference some of the topics and presenters at our upcoming virtual conference in November 21. I welcome at this particular point, so this is supposed to be conversational. I can't see everybody on one screen, so if you're on my other screen, I don't know how you're going to jump in, but I'll pause for a second, allow anybody to jump in if they want to make a comment or right off the top. Okay. Feel free to interject if you're. This is a conversation, although perhaps a little hard to have a conversation with 33 people. But I know certain things, and you guys know a lot of them. So let's share that. My interest in Eva was really about who was the person prior to 1957. I certainly did not know her. I didn't start the Pathwork till 1996. I certainly did not know the woman, but it was, when I came to the Pathwork, although I had been strongly involved in some Catholic, I was raised a Catholic, became an atheist, then went back to Catholicism as a social pursuit in a way, because I was a member. Didn't have memberships. I was going to say I'm a member of the gay community in Toronto. We didn't have memberships per se, but I lived in the gay community in Toronto, and the spiritual groups offered a way to socialize and be with other people and try to relate in what I would say was a meaningful relationship way. So I had been involved in gay group for lay Catholic men largely. And but when I came to the Pathwork, I was quite skeptical on the whole channeling business. And that question always remained with me as I worked with this material, is who was Eva Pierrakos? Where did she come from? And because certainly, as we all know, she was not a blowhard. She didn't talk about herself or blow herself up or constantly chatter on about her history, or there's a lot that isn't known. And so I took a look to see who was the person behind, I'm going to call it the veil, person behind the channel, I don't know. And so I was struck by two things which I wanted to mention today. And one was the fact that she was from a well-to-do Jewish family in Vienna, that she was born in 1915. Her father was a well-known writer. He is a German man, but he lived in Austria. He was a well-known writer in the German language, and his books were sold in Germany. He's a novelist. and her mother was from what at that time they would call, I guess, the haute bourgeoisie, or certainly the bourgeoisie, not the richest class, but the level below that. So she grew up in a big house. She also had spent her summers at her father's lakeside cottage. She, for all intentional purposes, had a privileged existence by the standards of the day, except for the fact that she was from a Jewish family, and socially and politically, the laws, tolerance was circling in around that family. But that type of negativity wasn't just in the society, it existed in her own household, because the year Eva was born, her father, actually before she was born, her father began an affair with another woman who would become his second wife. So her parents were on bad terms from the get-go. So it seemed that her whole existence in that earlier part of her life was about the unconscious acting out of everybody's negativity. And one of the interesting things about her father, certainly a lot written about him, is, that he was part of that intelligentsia in Vienna, which, included, that's where Freud was from, and many others. It was certainly a leading city, but there was a lot of questions being answered with few explanations. So that really struck me about Eva, that sort of buried in her subconscious was, man's inhumanity to man, or humans' inhumanity to humans, and where do we go? How do we get out of that trap? So the second thing that really struck me about Eva's past, and that is, first of all, I should say that, of course, her family had to flee Germany. Sorry, not Germany, Austria. Flee Germany, Austria. And her father passed away before the war started, the World War II started, but her mother went to Switzerland, to Zurich, and Eva eventually ended up in New York City, and supported herself as a dancer, as a dance instructor, I should say. She also had, she did have a husband, a first husband. She also had a long-term relationship after the husband, they separated. And with that second relationship, actually, the individual was a Russian aristocrat, sort of an itinerant individual. They returned after the war. They returned to Europe and visiting Eva's mother in Zurich, and that's when Eva really got exposed to to what various people call it. Some call it the occult. But to channeling, Zurich was. I didn't realize it until I looked into it. Zurich was had a lot of Jewish people had gone to Zurich before the war, during the war, and there was great interest on the part of those people to contact the relatives that they'd lost, and so there was great interest in the occult, in the spirit world, in anybody that could communicate, and that's where Eva, I was going to say, got chops. I even called them chops, but that's where Eva got exposed. Her mother exposed her to a session where there was a channeler, and Eva instantly took to it. Just felt that, that this, at that point she was 35 years old. So it was at that point where I think a time in her life when she was ready to commit to something. And so I was really, touched by that. Actually, I'm going to stop there because I've said a fair bit, and maybe there's others who want to, who also know have their own stories or know some insight there that they think it's worth sharing. So, Eva's training in the 50s to become a channel was, I think, over about 7 years, 6 or 7 years, and went from, of course, just participating to then progressively doing inner work, working with she doesn't identify who she worked with in Zurich, but working with coaches in Zurich. Fairly early on, started automatic writing, although initially it was just a response in her hand, where she realized her hand was moving without of her own volition, and then that developed into writing. Actually, Alan, your mother has some books that Eva left, and they have inscriptions in them from some of the her classmates.
Well, I know there is a document of automatic writing that we have, that I believe Jose Asensio gave to my mother, with the kind of curlicues or scribbles or, half-formed words, which ultimately became words. And of course, yes, we do have some of Eva's books. My mother has some of the German books that she consulted or relied upon. And some of the other things, of course, John Marcus's daughter, Magdalene, has some other items and documents in storage that I've looked at, that we might be able to acquire if we want to by talking to Magdalene about that. I think Eva was fairly private. There's sort of like in the Pathwork, there was the feeling that one had to get on with one's personal self-facing self-transformation, and that the history and the story of people's early lives, well, one had to delve into, obviously, one's relationship with one's parents. But in terms of autobiographical details, I don't really remember Eva talking about that at all. Of course, I was a young person. I wasn't really in her adult circle. I guess I feel that she was most characterized by certain traits or qualities. One was a kind of meticulous quality that she had about famously attending to everything right away. In other words, she would have, the inbox would be cleared right away. Right, Mel? She would have stuff that she'd handle it right away. Boom, bing, done. Also in her personal appearance, she was very meticulous, very nicely made up, always dressed very well. She kind of like has a quality of like a CEO kind of quality, like focused, alert, engaged. And of course, like many spiritual people or maybe some great CEOs, when she's talking to you or listening to you, she's really there with you, 100%. She's right there with you. So I guess I remember those qualities. And also, there was a lot of flashes of kindness and sweetness about Eva. You really, I guess I was a kid there, and she maybe had regard for the younger people. But I remember a lot of sweetness and love coming from her when I would talk to her. Matter of fact, I remember one time when I was alone at my house, and I'm not sure where my parents were, and I must have been like 8 or 9 years old. And I started to feel kind of scared, and I didn't know why. No one was at the house. Maybe my sisters were away somewhere. And I was by myself, and I was like worried for no reason. And I said, well, who am I going to talk to? And I said, well, what about Eva? So I looked her name up in the phone book and I called her, and she picked up, and she just kind of soothed me and talked to me for a little while. And it was very nice. And I must have been like 8 or 9 years old, like just at the age where parents can leave a kid in the house, in the apartment for a little while. But I'll always remember that. And then the other thing, when the Pathwork leadership used to go to Arosa, to Switzerland, and my parents took me to Switzerland, well, to this town for a little while. And Eva and John they gave me a little wooden box with an inscription on it. Love, memory from Austria, John and Eva. So that was very nice too. So I have those recollections.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, one of the books your mother has, there's, you know, I think it has a date in it, 1952 or something, and congratulates Eva for finishing the training, and there's some names in it. When I was in when I was in Zurich a few years ago, there was I tried to make a couple of inquiries, because it was also from the Zurich Psychological Society, I think they called it. There's a word for it. But none of those names were of any, you know, couldn't be traced to anything or anybody there. Mel, did you want to share anything? It is unmute, sorry.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I could share when I first met Eva. I guess it was the 90s. I was a hippie and had hitchhiked, had seen the sign Center for the Living Force a few weeks prior. I decided to hitchhike to the bottom of the hill, Panther Hill Road, that had the sign. And I had previously been connected to a channel who talked about the importance of going through the dark side before you get into the light. And that was a very unusual position to take at that time in spirituality. But I was drawn to it, and somehow drawn to Center for the Living Force, walked up the couple of miles to the dining hall, where the man who became my first helper, Chris Day, said, "Hal, let me introduce you to Eva." So he takes me over around the dining hall to the swimming pool, where Eva is sunning herself. And he introduces me, and she asks me a few questions, makes a pointed remark about my lack of prosperity and needing to hitchhike there, and asks me what my interests are. And she asks Chris, give me a specific 4 lectures, and says, come back on Monday and we'll see. And I came back, and she said, you can live here for the next couple of months. And Eva was known as being a fixture at the swimming pool, sunning herself a lot. So that was my introduction to Eva.
That's great.
Do you remember what the 4 lectures were?
No, I don't.
Sorry, who did you say was your first helper?
A man named Chris Day. He was a horseman and ended up buying a stable nearby, and I guess at some point did leave the Pathwork. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
After Chris Day, Mendick Rubin and Edith Rubin were my helpers, and they had an extraordinary relationship with Eva.
I mean, I'll say that Chris Day was also a gay man.
Yes.
You know, there have been prominent people, gay folks in the Pathwork, and Chris is one of the guys I remember first. There was a couple, Gary Dana, of course, and his partner, Jim, who were gay, and they were well known in the Pathwork. And of course, Jose Asensio, who recorded the lectures, was gay.
By the way, Mel, I think Chris still lives down in New Paltz.
Oh, wow. Maybe I'll get in touch with him. Yeah.
Sorry, Jack, where does he live?
In New Paltz, which is not too far south of where Mel and I live.
Oh, yeah.
He bought a horse farm and the farm is still going. I see it. It's off of Route 32.
Marion, did you want to share anything? Thanks, Mel.
Thank you. These reminiscences kind of jog my memory, some things I haven't thought about in a long time. And I first met Eva, I guess, in 1971 and discovered the path. We didn't have the center yet. But it was mainly meetings, you know, at her place or another apartment. And so I was that kind of one of many, kind of a little bit shy and quiet. And so as things changed and we got the center and I eventually joined, it was the third helpership training. Eva was mainly having the meetings together and dinners together. And something that I always touched me very deeply was her, now I can describe it as the balance she had of her head and her heart, with her heart leading the way. And that kind of intelligence just was what pervaded. Because we were at the leading edge of transformation in the Pathwork, and we made many mistakes, just as I did personally in my life, and learned from it. That was what was so valuable. We really, really learned from our mistakes. And so we, because at one point, training group one, which emerged out of a close group around her who were studying with her and learning from her. And up at the center, when we got the center, they sat very much exclusively at a table together. And we're always having a very good time, and the rest of us were around the room. And there were some crises that emerged from at the time at the center. And Eva made the decision that they would no longer have that exclusive table with her and John and the first training group, and that everyone would be together. And she did things like that were just transforming, really transforming. And and I just remember with a lot of affection with her and John going around the center in their little golf cart thing, and how a lot of the kids would jump on it and we adults wouldn't. But at the end, we'd all crowd around and kind of hug each other. And so it was mainly, you know, her being the head of everything. And we weren't personal friends that we visit, although I would to her home at the center. There were some of us would come into their house at the center and maybe have a small gathering. And then at the end of her life, when her cancer returned, and she knew it was not going to heal. They had had some surgery, but it wasn't going to heal. So we had then, in taking care of her, I was part of her team in that we all had nights that we would cook her dinner and all. And so I got to know, and then we'd eat together, she and I, on my night. And so I got to know her as a woman, because she asked me about my life and my history, some things she didn't know, and she talked about her life more. And I really appreciate that, getting to know her in that way as a woman. And I always remembered when she had certain rules about cleaning up the kitchen, and that no dishes were to be left in the dish drain. Everything was to be cleaned up. And so I made sure the kitchen was all nice and tidy that night I left. And so even now, when I tend to want to leave something overnight in my sink, I always remember Eva. I thought, no, no dishes allowed in the sink overnight. So I'm sure there's much more I could say, but I'll leave it at that. Yeah, yes, I loved her.
Thank you so much, Marion.
Yeah. Jack, do you want to say anything? I know you also came to the center in the 70s. Well, I think it was the 70s.
Yeah, 74 I came. Yeah, Marion's statement and Alan about brought out. A lot of memories. I read the lectures. I was living in Washington D.C. and I read the lectures before I went up, but I went to an open weekend in September of '74. And I certainly knew who Eva was, but I didn't know what she looked like. So I inadvertently sat down on Friday night at her table, a table with several people, including Eva. So that's how I met Eva, just chatting at the dinner table. I remember that, first of all, she was an awful good-looking woman. Okay, so I noticed that right off. And eventually, of course, I figured out who she was, but the indelible memory for that evening was not just that I met her, but that at the end of the meal, she lit a cigarette, and it really pissed me off. And I got up and left, and it took me through a couple twists and turns of my own mind and psyche. Like, wait a minute, how could she be a spiritual person and have that filthy habit kind of thing? And then, but that turned out to be one of the things that went on. She spent the next couple of years trying to break the habit. Those who were at the dining hall, and there was a whole kerfluffle about whether we should even allow smoking inside the dining hall. And eventually Eva came down on saying, nope, smoking is banned. So, but I remember one of the things she did to try to cut her habit was to cut the cigarettes in half and only smoke half. What Alan said about her privacy, I remember too, except that if you're around her for a while, she would all of a sudden drop some kind of very private, intimate something about herself, just kind of offhand. And that was really, it felt like it drew me to her in a certain way. I don't remember any of them, but I remember kind of like going gape mouthed 2 or 3 times, when she would just in the middle of a conversation say something very, very private about herself. I eventually became the manager of the physical plant there at Phoenicia, so I spent a lot of time interacting with her over this, that, and the other, and this comment that nothing, she wouldn't go to sleep until everything was cleared off her plate, meant that occasionally I would get a phone call at like 2 in the morning or something like that, telling me to do something the next day, or why didn't I do something more like that. In addition to this sunbathing that Mel talked about at the pool, she would sunbathe during the board meetings too. She would bring her lounge out. We would have board meetings out in the sunshine, which was hard on my bald head. So she liked it. She really, and people asked her, they said, aren't you going to get cancer from all that sunbathing? She had some kind of answer to that. She eventually did die of cancer. I don't know if it was skin cancer or not. That's it for now.
Thanks. Yeah. I know for myself when looking at, oh, sorry, is there anybody else that wanted to comment? I don't know. Sure, Attila.
I just wanted to say that in my heart there is such a precious feeling. In the same time, I'm so sad that I wasn't present. That I wasn't present in that time. And so touched. I don't know why I feel like I would cry now, but just you all hear my voice, yeah. And I just wanted to bring this feeling and share with all of you. Yeah, there is. I can feel, and I could feel that there is a strong bond with this channel material. I didn't know much about Eva. Yeah. So just wanted to share this feeling that I'm having right now.
Thank you.
Well, I do have some photos of Eva that are very obscure that most people probably haven't seen. I could share them if you like.
Take a look right now.
Yeah.
Do you have, do I need to make you presenter or do you have it?
I'm not sure. I could try it.
If your share screen's not working, I'll make you presenter. Oh, it looks like it's worked. Oh, maybe.
Okay. All right. Now here's an early photograph.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure how old she was at this point. That's a photo of a photo. But you can see those eyes, right? Boom.
Yeah, she looks about, what, 20 there? 1935, maybe. Yeah.
Could be. This is,
wow. That's at the board meeting, right?
That looks like late 40s, you know, the all those wires. I suppose it could be.
Alan, can you make those full screen? Is there any way to make them full screen?
That's what she looked like. I remember from first meeting her about that time.
Yeah.
and then that we all remember, this is her at her apartment, I believe in New York, sunbathing as usual.
Any idea who the gentleman is?
That might have been her paramour. I mean, I suppose. Well, he doesn't look Russian, right? I mean, he was a Russian aristocrat. Andre.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that is, but he definitely looks European.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the photos I've got, some of them anyway.
Wonderful.
Yeah. It's hard to know at this particular point. Yeah, I love history, so I can get focused just on, staying in the past, which is interesting because in my personal journey with in recent years, especially in going back and looking at who was Eva prior to 1957, and actually going to Zurich and learning about some of the things that Eva would have been exposed to at that time. The Zurich Psychological Society, and another prominent channeler of that day. To some degree, there was, interestingly, in Zurich at that particular time, by the mid-50s, the tension between the Jewish people and the Christians was so strong that they had to split. And the Christian people continued under a prominent channel, Beatrice Brunner, and their church still exists today. They have a couple actually church here in Germany, and then the one in Zurich, and then the Psychological Society continued as its own, for the Jewish people, a psychological society, not aligned with a religious denomination. But interestingly enough, the Pathwork never, always straddled that tension between Judaism and Christianity. Yeah, I think in my personal journey, it was like, don't get lost in the past and don't live in the past. So it's like knowing the past and learning from the past and being motivated by, the dedication of people and how they struggled and worked with things. But then where are we today in 2021, and what challenges do we face? And go ahead, Brian.
Joe Prindle just sent a chat that I really want to invite us to respond to. I'll read what he said. I get the feeling that because there are those who remember her, on some level, Eva's spirit is present with us in this circle. And I wonder if we could just take a moment and just go inside and hold this possibility together. From our love of the work, love of her, the love of truth for us. Thank you, Bill.
I have a couple of questions. I want to know, Paul, is this written down? Information that you've given us, is it written down anywhere? Alan, how about the pictures? Are they available? I would love to have that, to be able to look at those pictures. And Brian, I don't remember if you remember, I'm sure you remember when you and Mary did that homecoming at Seven Oaks, and we all were standing in a circle up in Lighthouse before Lighthouse had its rug put down, and people started telling stories. Is there any of that get written down? That would be just so wonderful to have.
Well, Julia, I'm hearing your question like a call to steward the details.
Actually,
really, holding a deeper reality. I welcome what you're saying.
Back in 20s.
It feels important for us to not forget our roots. And yes, the times have changed. We're in a very different place here, 2021, than post World War II. But still, that's where our roots come from, and I think it's important. Thanks.
Can I speak a minute to that too, in the spirit that Brian has brought up here and Julia is kind of pointing to? Alan mentioned kind of offhand that some of Eva's papers are with John Pierrakos' daughter. And without going into any detail, there has been some difficulty in accessing them. And I'm personally constantly praying that there will be resolution to that standoff so that Alan can actually secure those papers. And I would like us all, in the spirit that we're talking about here, to somehow bring Magdalena to some resolution with her difficulty with her father. so that she can release those papers to us. In whatever way you converse with your spirit and with our spirit and with the Pathwork spirit, please do what you can to accomplish that.
Yeah, I can speak to that for a minute. Magdalene Pierrakos and I talked a long time ago about whether she'd be willing to donate those documents. Now, those photographs are from her collection, so I kind of felt like I couldn't really share them without negotiating with her, you know, what she would want. She has a lot of those are photos of photos, so they're not the originals. Anyway, she wanted to get money for these documents. We discussed a figure of $10,000, and Catherine Karras at the time thought that was outrageous and offered like 1,000. And then Magdalene said, forget about it. So we're talking about photographs, some of Eva's jewelry, her writing desk, a lot of her books, and also the original first copies of the lectures with her annotated handwritten notes in them. And also the manuscript of her book that she wrote, The Undefended Self, you know, her own personal manuscript of that book, and some other items too. So it's kind of like they're sitting in a warehouse in Brooklyn. Yeah. So I kind of shared those pictures. I just shared with a little bit of, you know, not trepidation, but we don't really have the rights to those, so to speak. But, you know, they're beautiful photographs. So I've just figured I'd share them with you guys anyway. But that is the only material on Eva that's not publicly available that does exist as far as I know. And I do think it would be a good thing to get those documents. And I could certainly call Magdalene. Again, I had coffee with her a number of times. She did a performance piece about her dad in an abandoned warehouse. Very interesting, actually. I don't know if anyone saw it, Jack, if you heard about it about 10 years ago. But I think she sort of kind of resents that Eva's legacy for us overpowers her dad's. But yeah, of course, John left all of his documents, books, and photographs of Eva to her as his. Well, he didn't leave them to her, but he had a heart attack, so she inherited them. So that's the story with those documents. And I did take a pretty comprehensive inventory of the documents and items that were there, which I could share with you. Certainly I can do that. And Paul, I believe I've sent you the link to the inventory of documents, jewelry, artifacts, and things like that. So that's the way it stands right now.
Yeah, I guess there's two things blocking us. One is, of course, accessing $10,000 US. I say that since I only have Canadian dollars, but although the foundation has US dollars. But so there's the issue of money, and also we were actually in the process of trying to become a virtual, what do you call it? I don't know, a virtual organization, you know, because we do have this office in Madison, Virginia, which I've, you know, sort of taken a look at and sort of decided, you know, we need to wrap that up rather, you know, there's no, so I don't know, you know, where do we go with material things? I don't have a plan, you know, or the board doesn't have a plan for that. But certainly emotionally, I mean, I'd love to have those, except I just wouldn't want to move them from one. Well, I would like to move them from one warehouse to another warehouse, but that doesn't seem to be the right answer, to just warehouse them. And I think it's a question as to, I think in this Pathwork, we need to, you know, make more of Eva, but then not too much of her. Like, it's not, you know, I think the story of Eva, her legacy to us is, I just did my work. You know, I stuck to my knitting. I kept, you know, the guide told her, you got to do your work. You're not, you know, and she stuck to her work, and I mean, so yeah, certainly if anybody has any ideas at some particular point or initiatives.
Well said, Paul. I mean, Eva would be the last person to believe that she herself should be venerated in any way. I think that's very clear. She basically, like you said, she stuck to her knitting and wanted people to do that.
Yeah. Kathy, did you?
Yeah, I'm newer to Pathwork, but as I'm listening, so I have a little bit of a distance involved because I never knew her personally, but I'm very grateful for the channeling work that she did. The sense that I'm getting, what I'm hearing is what feels like a little bit of grasping to me, and like it needs to just evolve naturally. And it just, I'm hearing nostalgia and I'm hearing grasping, and it feels like there might be some fresh energy that could get breathed into that. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's always I think it's part of the relationship of the present to the past. You know, how does the actually we're struggling with that with the lectures themselves now. You know, in the things that people are coming to the lectures with. You know, we have for an example would be the guide of homosexuality, where the guide does make comments, and then of course the whole issue of I don't want to speak crudely, but when you read the lectures, you tend to equate masculine with male, with somebody with a male sexual organ, and woman. Women likewise, but now there's just so much fluidity, especially with the younger generation, and so much, I think, also an understanding that everybody needs to have masculine aspects and feminine aspects, you know, that to be assertive and to be able to be assertive when necessary, and to be able to be nurturing when necessary.
This is Bill Prindle. I was resonating with what you said, Paul, about the question is, what do we do with material things? That really struck me. I'm on the board of the Middle Atlantic Pathwork, and we're wrestling with that set of questions. I think that's important, and I think it also gets to how much do we hold on to our fixed ideas, right?
Yeah.
And the phrase that I learned in organization development comes up: appreciative inquiry, in which the fundamental question that is asked is, what was the original spark? What was the spark that got this whole organization going? And is it still there?
Yeah.
And if it's still there, what is it to, strengthen the flame? And then how do you need to adapt? I mean, how do you carry that flame into some other form? So I feel like those are both live for me these days, and trying to figure out how to take the spark that came through Eva and the lectures, and start some new fires in the 21st century. So it's helpful to have these really sweet and clear memories. It really does get to some of that original spark, and then, hey, And now what?
I think part of what you're bringing up is references why we chose the theme for this virtual conference, which is the many paths within the pathwork, and finding inner authority and autonomy while remaining in union. So that this this pathwork is still very relevant. There may be a lot of things that part of another era, like language and assumptions, but humanity has not evolved that much in 50 years. There's still the split off ego consciousness is still alive and healthy and creating a lot of dysfunctionality. And I think that's where we have a role to play, just as a group, that is focusing, as I think Mel put it, when you said, you were told years ago, first go through the dark, you have to go to the dark channel to get to the light channel, and that is the pathwork. That is, that's probably one of the reasons why we're still the road less traveled. It's work. It's not, but it really reinforces, changes the understanding you create from the inside out. And of course the external in the pathwork is a mirror to what's going on in the inside. You have to take responsibility for you may not be the sole author of that external manifestation, but what your only way past it is to learn how you contributed, what your contribution was to it.
I want to say,
I'm so glad you said the word inner authority, because that same phrase was coming to me, like, this is something that's much more alive in my experience than it might have been in the 50s or 60s when the first lectures came through. I grew up in a conformist society, and it's not that way now. And in the Middle Atlantic Pathwork, I'm seeing a lot of struggle over what is authority, who holds authority, how is it, how do we deal with all that? And so that tension of inner authority and communion is really, it's another one of those key things. Anyway, I'll stop. This has been really helpful.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of people have raised their hand yet. In my sense, what we're doing right now is something vital and essential. I want to invite us to consider how to keep doing, which is to connect together in the moment in a real and deep way, and feel the presence within ourselves of group consciousness, the love for this specific kind of work, this specific kind of love, and just to say that that's essential. And I pray we can be inspired to find ways outside of the different regional groupings, right? That's what's so magic here, is that we're here from all over together, different generations in the work. So Siri has had hand up for a while.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, I'm Siri. I just graduated from TP, and I'm originally from Colombia, but I live in Austin. And I'm really grateful for being here. Was looking forward to see more stories about Eva and the community, so I feel really grateful. And I guess what I wanted to share was when I come to these meetings, I keep feeling the demographics are similar, and not so much as my group, age group, or I am trans, I identify as transgender. So when I was listening to you guys telling like some of the history of like gay people, I was feeling like so excited, and I was wondering if there was any other trans folk in the history of the pathwork that I can relate to. But I kept thinking, and I've been praying for this, and I even have talked to Julia about this, is how can this be more intergenerational, in the sense of like, I feel like I am in my 30s and I don't feel like I have a lot of people my age to connect with that maybe we have something also to give to you guys. Like I am humbly learning from you, but I also think that what happens with this intergenerational thing is that it goes back and forth, right? So we feed from people that are younger, and I know like Pathwork has this quality where you cannot start it when you're like so young because it's so heavy, so difficult, right? So, but like I feel, yeah, like I'm wondering like why am I here being maybe not the majority of the group, right? Like what am I here? What can I have give to this community, right? And so, and it happens when I go to every single meeting in the Zoom now. So I'm like, just wondering how is it that we can welcome more people my age or maybe my identity, or like, and what can we learn from each other, sort of thing. And so yeah, that was my thinking for now. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Siri. It's interesting. I think a lot of, actually, I don't know of any other transgendered people. Let me say that. I mean, I'm a gay man, but I had a history in the gay community, and when I came to the Pathwork, I didn't come to the Pathwork for reasons of the gay community or anything like that. I felt I needed the wisdom that the guide had to help me become who I can become. And I do want to say that we are actually putting, and I don't know if it's the first time, it feels like the first time that I'm aware of, for the virtual conference, we are having a panel of gay and 3 gay men, 3 lesbian women that will be on the agenda. Actually, I'm even wondering, should we try to get you on the panel? But interesting, the panel is having a meeting later today to do the recording. But, yeah, if you can, I don't know if I don't know, I'm just P Paquette at compliance, sorry, P Paquette at pathwork.com or pathwork.org. I keep mixing my business email and my Pathwork email, but I'd love to hear further from you, and thank you.
Paul, let me make a comment from a slightly different direction. It used to be that the Pathwork was geographically focused. If you were interested in being part of the Pathwork community, you would be referred to a local group, whether it's Toronto or New York or Mexico City or wherever. But over the years, now people all over the world, as is happening right now, are interested. So it's a whole different concept of how you get connected with people who can support you. And quite frankly, I'm a little baffled by it, because we can all do this video wise, and we've all learned to do this in the COVID times, but there's still something that's not totally satisfying about only connecting via video. So I'm sympathetic to that, but a member of the Pathwork Foundation, it's something that it's on my mind all the time, because I'm in constant contact with these different groups and different people. And there are just people who are not able to make a physical contact in any kind of Pathwork setting.
Yeah. Brian, I think a few people want to comment, so did you want to moderate that?
We've got hands up, Sheila, and then I can't see the first name.
I'll see you, Lori.
Fred, yeah.
And Fred. Sheila.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering what the plans were for Eva's belongings and papers after the daughter's death. Maybe that her daughter does not want to part with those things now, but might be willing to bequeath them to the Pathwork Foundation after her death. She might not have any use for them. There may not be anyone else who would want them at that point. And that would be one way of making sure that they don't get lost, that they do get passed on to the Pathwork organization. Because I don't know it's so much that we need them right now, although it'd be nice to have them. But I think our feeling is that, you know, we want to maintain the history. And Eva's certainly the key part of that history. So I just wonder if that idea might be broached to the daughter.
Thank you, Sheila.
I think Alan's really stick handling this. That is she in good health, Helen?
She's in good health. She's about 67. I'm going to email her and I'll see you, Paul. Yeah, do that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to send everybody a copy of Eva's memorial book, which gives a lot of answers to a lot of these questions, which we published after her death in March of '79. So I'm going to send that to everybody as a file.
Thank you so much, Alan. Okay, LT Holmes.
Hi, I'm Lori. So my maiden name starts with a T, and all the football fans like to call me LT in college. So it kind of stuck in my email by accident, not on purpose. Anyway, okay, I'm Lori. I just want to say, from the very beginning of this meeting, I said I was from Minnesota now, but I actually felt this connection with everybody, and I kind of felt like this is as close to this person who was channeling that I've ever been. And it's so funny because Mel mentioned New Paltz, and all of a sudden this memory, I was a very poor kid, but I would get to go to the Rocking Horse Dude Ranch when I was a kid. And I am from Brooklyn originally. And it's just all these little connections. And Alan had said, the stuff was in Brooklyn, but I really want to say that I was listening to what everybody was saying, and something that keeps coming out, because I went through such a dark time, and the only thing that I would trust was the Pathwork lectures. It was the only words that she was channeling that I could trust. I didn't agree with everything. I had a lot of pain to read a lot of those things, but the message that I need to remind myself is, we keep identifying with these bodies. We keep identifying with whatever we want to identify with. So, you can take a piece of paper, and the reason why I say that is because I was walking around with an internal message after what I thought was my identity was being challenged by my circumstance. And, you take a girl from Brooklyn who was Jewish, raising her kids Christian, yada, 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 in the middle of Minnesota nice, which is not really nice. And you got all these opposites. And all of a sudden, I felt like a nothing. And that pain to feel like a nothing is so profound that it forced me to read the lectures just to get through every hour. And then I really understood what it meant to identify. I'm identified as a woman. I'm identified as a mother. I'm identified as a scientist. Who am I without that identification? And so it gave me some space to observe myself. And I really feel like when you talk about, we all have our different paths, and yet the path is a narrow path. I think the narrow path, in my interpretation of the lectures, means just keep shedding that identification and just be in the moment. I don't look at a tree and judge how it's different. I'm just looking at a tree. And I really love people and hate people at the same time. Those opposites. But I really felt I needed to get that out there.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Fred.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to really welcome Siri to the community. And I've been through a Pathwork transformation program. I'm in year 3 of helpership training, and 99% of my path workers and students have been women. And I haven't studied with any gay men. I have thankfully had some connecting with Paul on the side, which feels really, really good. But I have a lot of compassion and empathy for you, because throughout my journey, I've also felt kind of like the odd man out, no pun intended. And in my helpership year 3, I have 8 women that I've been studying with through helpership. But what's fascinating is 2 of the members don't necessarily identify as gay or lesbian. And I'm learning more about non-binary and binary and all these different terms that 5 years ago wasn't even in this, realm of communication. So I don't identify as a transgender, and I really want to honor your courage in this environment to open that up. And that my intention once I become a helper is to really focus on growing male energy, focusing on the gay and lesbian and transgender community, and let that everybody is welcome. Because I grew up in a very rigid Methodist, gay people are going to hell. And in the last 10 years, my parents, who are now 88 and 89, have accepted not only myself, but my husband. And really Pathwork has been a huge part of that. And my sister happens to be a lesbian. So they had 2 out of 3 children that were gay. So the Lord works in very mysterious ways, Siri. So I thought I would share that personal story with you, and that all of us are welcome. And that's really one of the many things that attracts me to the Pathwork in my path.
Thank you, Fred. And Kia.
Yeah, similarly to Fred, I just didn't want Siri's comments to go uncommented. We struggle with the same thing here in Ottawa. Is how do we bring young people into the Pathwork and their energy? So, Siri, I just want to encourage you to keep on going, because it's something. Despite the sexuality issue, is just the young energy I think we're looking for in the Pathwork, and are aware in Ottawa that that's missing, and really encourage you to you might be a trailblazer, so keep on going.
Thank you, Kia.
Well, for sure you're a trailblazer. Thanks, Kia. I wanted to say that for me, a lot of the people on the call here are older. We have our ways. We know this work has served us. We're dedicated to it. This work may die with us, but as I say to people, we're called to try to keep this work alive for the younger people. We can't force them to follow it, but we can do our best to make it, to be a witness to it, to make it available in ways that they can hear it or see it or get exposed to it. Somebody was talking to me about a one-page synthesis that somebody's done in Brazil of all the lectures, and that's great. And somebody says, well, yeah, maybe that'll motivate them to read the whole lecture. Well, maybe it won't, but those phrases will go into their head and percolate, and at some point be very meaningful to them, help them to, see, have some insight. So I think we owe it to what the work is given to us to try to, make it available to others. And the other thing that came up for those in the MAP community, was your own theme of thinking outside the box. Don't you know, don't stay in the box of what everyone's experiences have been. Well, this is the way it was for us, so this is the way it's got to be. So maybe I've opened up more conversations. And over to you, Brian, to your meeting, and I know you have to wind it down.
Well, I know we're getting ready to come in for our final approach here before we land. Yet, what I'd like to say is just again, how important it is that we connect together, that something does happen that's alive and in the present moment. And we have a chance to do that in a real way in November at the International Pathwork Conference. It's online, it's 2 days, there's a rich list of speakers, and you know, please come, share the joy, share the eros, share the juice, share the presence. Like, anything you want to say about that, Paul? In 2 minutes.
I just wanted to say to Sheila that your question, the pathwork of general minds, I can never say it in Portuguese, Minas Gerais or something. They're in the process of publishing that book and making translations available. And I think I'm going to get a prototype of some of those summaries. So we probably will have that available at some point. Actually, if you Brian can send me your, or I can keep it in mind to send to Brian and on to you.
Send it to me. I'll make
if I
sure
get a copy.
That's where.
Yeah. If I get they were supposed to send some samples. Yes. So ipathvc.com, International Pathwork Virtual Conference.com. That's our virtual conference coming up in a couple of months. And I really hope that everybody's, everybody's able to participate in that. It's going to be intense, but the advantage is that everything's being recorded. So your enrollment will be good for a month. So during those intense 3 days of November 19th, 2021, no one's going to do all the hours, but we'll be recording those, and you'll be able to go back for at least a month and hear some of the speakers and the presenters. I know, I don't have my list here, but some of the, I was going to say some of the usual suspects. We have Susan and Donovan Fasenga will be presenting Sage Walker. I was going to say Ingrid Shearholtz, but it's not Ingrid Shearholtz. I want to say she's here. Allison Green Barton. I sometimes confuse you and Allison. Sorry. Hope you're complimented by that.
Some of the most devoted and inspired helpers. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also have some people coming from Europe and South America, Ada, and Mexico. So we really, Olga from Mexico, Aida Pastelnik from Brazil. She brought the Pathwork to Brazil. A couple of our presenters, Johan Koss and Ria from the Netherlands, and Manu Bear from Belgium. And I think we're really trying to highlight that these teachers have all done that inner work, working with the lecturers, looking at their experience, and then coming to a particular understanding of the lectures, such as Sage looking at that divine sexuality, or Madeline from Ottawa looking at pleasure, where the guide talks about pleasure, the pleasure of being.
Okay, Paul, thank you. So we are going to have 15 minutes of social time after we do our closing right now. And you're welcome to come. We'll have coffee and donuts. And take a moment and just gently go inside again, like we did at the beginning. And turn your awareness to that voice of the real self deep inside. It's always there. And hear that voice say, I am with you. I'm with you. Now invite you to unmute yourself and bring your hands up and let that say that a number of times in different ways to faces here on the screen. I'm with you.
I am with you.
I am with you.
I am with you.
I'm with you.
I am with you.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
I am with you. I'm with you.
I am with you.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
I am with you.
With you. I'm with you, Terry.
Thank you.
With you, Kathy. You see you here.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you all. I'm not going to stay for my own selfish reasons. I want to go to dinner at 6:30 here in Germany. Right, Attila?
Thank you.
So I will say goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Vamos a las 2 horas.
Uma hora e 40.
Thank you.
Okay. This is just the casual hangout together.
I was going to say we are the dogged dozen, but now it's down to 10. So.
Adla, could you pronounce your first name for me again?
Who?
Was that to Attila Schroeder?
Yeah.
Attila.
Attila.
Attila's.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Marion Lewis. I'd like to say something.
Please.
And I don't believe in accidents. So that it's this, who we are here right now and present, but it's sparked by something that in the larger group was brought up about the younger people and younger generations. And here in New York City, I happen to belong to an amazing private senior center where it's devoted to intergenerational activities, conversations with the high school kids, the college kids. 6th graders come to visit me in my home, every month, things like that. Now with COVID, we're not having that in person right now. But from my experience and from my studies with neuropsychologists like Rick Hansen and others, is that how, even though I'm wired for eternity, that these young people are wired differently in their brains. And so they're starting out right away having to function in the 3rd dimensional world while they're shifting into wired for the 5th dimension of spirit, having the human experience. And so they have a lot of challenges, and it's very, very difficult because the schools and education systems, with very few exceptions, are always behind the kids. Our public and a lot of the private also always lagging behind the kids. So they need a special support in whatever way that we can contribute to that, to our education systems. So I don't always have a solution for that. I do what I can locally, when I can. And I see mindfulness being introduced more into some of the schools. And I went to a teachers group where they saw, even with 3-year-olds, bring in mindfulness, how it's changing the changes. So it's very, very exciting. And one of the things in one of the gatherings, I'd said I'm very careful not to preach, not to teach, but to use an opportunity to allow my guidance to come through. And with a group of these were, I think, high school kids standing around me after an event where we were singing or sharing or something. They would kind of gather around, and I would just drop in something once in a while, like, this is not a self-improvement program here. period. And they'd, oh, come closer, want to hear more. And then I'd find the opportunity. Yes, you're already who you already are and will always be and always have been, period. And then would be more, you know? And so I would just use those opportunities for guidance and set an intention to be as authentic as I could and also mindful in any of these situations. So I can see that young people, they're just yearning for this knowledge. And so, and also the energy. So since I didn't become certified in core energetics, but we had to do the 3 years of intense study to be a Pathwork helper. And I would go, I have not during COVID, to the Core Energetic Institute here in New York City at every yearly board meeting that's open to propose getting family organizations so children can be raised with how to clear their energy bodies. So that so anyway, I'll end it with that, because I wanted to put across my energy with this, because we were all saying, here we are, you're with each other. And so I don't have much contact with individuals, like with all of you, you know, emailing or anything. But I just want to make that statement because I'm very committed to these intergenerational connections because of so much vitality with us and with younger people.
That's really helpful to hear, Marianne. I'm reflecting that I was first in the Pathwork in the 80s. There were a lot of us in my cohort who were 30-something. And guess what? We started getting married, we had kids, and there was literally nothing. There was nothing in the community at that time, either for parents of young children or for kids. And so, you know, just fundamentals just took a lot of us off into other ways. So, yeah.
I have some thoughts about why pathworkers tend to be older. And I think many of us had to try many other things, but that didn't work very well before we realized, you know, before we could really appreciate pathwork. You know, as for me, I had been involved in other kinds of spiritual practices and had been in various kinds of psychotherapy through my 20s, teens, 20s, and 30s. And the other thing is that because there's no real marketing of the pathwork, you usually have to learn of it through someone else. So you would have already had to have had connections of some kind, such as I first learned of it when I was on a meditation retreat in India. And with a very strict and perfectionistic guru. So when somebody gave me some pathwork lectures that were all about self-acceptance, that was like music to my ears, you know? And, but I was already, I think 39 at that point. So, you know, on the borderline of not being young anymore. But I don't know that there would have been any other way for me to have found out about it. You know, I mean, I guess you could run across that book in the bookstore. There was that Bantam book that was very widely distributed. It's called The Pathwork of Self-Transformation. But, you know, certain things are very easy to fall into, such as church. You know, there could be a church right down the street and you could walk there and you know about it, but people don't generally, you know, I don't know. I've said what I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheila. That's very helpful. Attila.
For some time, I thought that I'm not doing the work. I had a heart attack with my 48 when I was 48 and so on. So I slowed down, and this moving to Germany is, I don't know how it happened, but what I want to share with all of you is that suddenly this hunger for giving, to give what I went through, and I really went a lot. I was monk in India. I was a lot. Okay, not to go into details. And then, in a mysterious way, I have 4 young people, aged 25, 30. They just appeared, and they just they are thirsty for love, for being seen, for warmth, for not to be oh God, I have problem with German language yet. Okay, it will come. Judge. That's the word, you know. And all those are my wounds. So they feel. I hope so. But otherwise, they wouldn't be drawn. Yeah, not to me as to me. Yeah, but we wouldn't met in a really mysterious way. Yeah, and I also want to activate myself here in Munich because I'm the only helper in Munich, but I'm just coming back again and again. I'm just letting this impulse. I'm here. I am here, and who needs, who wants, I'm waiting. Yeah, and there is no pressure. I don't have to have group, yeah, but there is a longing. There is a painful, gentle, painful longing to meet people, and young and whoever. I don't want to address that to only or the younger, or that doesn't matter, because we are speaking about souls. Yeah, and this compassion, that this love that I have received from Dorothy J. Titus, from Lucy McKinnis, from Mary Van Vliet, from Jenkins, Lini Jenkins, from Maria Eichen, from I just have this desire and longing to pass over, to give that. I don't know. Maybe I sounded confused there, but it's also me. Yeah. Thank you.
So we have just a couple minutes left. Who else wants to share anything? Kathy.
So I value Pathwork deeply. I really care about it. I care about seeing it flourish. I care about seeing its message, the timeless understandings that Pathwork conveys carried forward. But I totally understand the feeling of looking around and seeing that, you know, sort of the wrapper, the body that, and the experience of the person is not really something that's very represented in Pathwork, and finding a way to bridge that gap. And I think for me, as I've been brainstorming this over the past weeks, it's, I would love to see an active message put forth saying, you are wanted, your experience is wanted. If you're a person of color, you are wanted here. If you are a person of the LGBT plus community, your experience is wanted here. If you are younger or older or wherever you fall, you are wanted here. And it's that intention of really opening up a space, not passively just letting people magnetize, but really saying, if we, want this message to move forward in any way, really putting out that desire and that longing and that love for that unity consciousness. And I think that message has to become active and present in whatever way it can be.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And thank you, everybody, for
Yes,
being here.
thank
and
you,
for
thank you.
sticking around. So
Yes,
Bye-bye, everybody.
let's do
thank
this
you,
again
thank you,
soon.
Kathy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you, Brian, and everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Attila.